Hello, world. It's me, Dennis, and I'm here with another conversation with my friend and delight and person that I love, Bonnie Neel. Hello, Bonnie.
Hey, Dennis, it's so good to see you.
Oh, it's lovely to see you. Listen, real estate. Oh my God, we're coming out of COVID. Here we are in May, on the 6th of May, 2021, and the real estate market here in Austin and of course around the world is just going crazy. Could you please tell me what the hell is going on?
Uh, yeah, this is the craziest market. I mean, and it's happening nationwide. Austin, especially, is just kind of at the epicenter of the insanity. Essentially, what happened is kind of a perfect storm of good and bad, right? With the pandemic hitting last year, what happened was that the mo- the natural like ebb and flow of a real estate market
Yeah,
essentially got stopped. Basically, people out there in the United States that would have usually, sold their house and moved up, bought a bigger one, or moved to a different neighborhood for a different school district, or older people who maybe would have sold their house and moved into an assisted living, they just didn't. People just stayed home, right? That was what
right.
happened with the pandemic, and then you had this historic collapsing of interest rates. Like interest rates were at historic lows, and that encouraged a lot of people to get into the market, right? That suddenly there was a lot of buyers were like, wow, now's the time. The and that is just a perfect storm. You had a lot less supply than was normal, and then a lot more new buyers coming in. And what you've seen is just this huge increase in home prices because there's just not enough supply.
Yeah,
And adding to that is the builders, right? The new builds. They kind of it wasn't in retrospect in hindsight 2020. It does look like panic, but it was just a normal thing that with the pandemic hitting, they severely limited their inventory. So
sure.
they assumed that they were going to have a less building, and that was completely wrong. And so now we're having amazing shortages of lumber and steel and everything is just exponentially higher. I remember somebody talking about just like regular like 2x4 used to be like $15, and now it's like $75 a piece of wood,
Goodness
and that's
gracious.
crazy. And you're just kind of seeing what happens with that kind of imbalance in the market. There's so many people who are wanting to buy, and there's just not enough houses out there. And Austin is very acute because Austin has always had a supply problem, right?
Yeah,
There's always been more people who want to buy houses here than there have been houses. And you can see a lot of just huge, wild changes in price. I've seen houses that are listed for 375 get into multiple offer bids where the winning bid is 550 cash. Who
wow.
can do that? Who can do that? That's heartbreaking. It's very hard for first-time home buyers. It's very hard for kind of even savvy home buyers. This is a
Sure.
very competitive market. It's crazy.
How have you been assisting your clients? So what has been your piece of this action and what you're doing in order to help and to help people in your work, Bonnie?
Um, because I specialize in first-time home buyers, but I've been getting kind of, a lot of move-up buyers as well, right? Buyers
Hmm.
that own a house or already do. Honestly, we're just being really strategic and kind of really talking about cash. Cash is kind of king right now, so it's about making strong offers, making big offers, trying to see if it makes sense to maybe borrow against a 401k, you know, get that gift funds from family or friends, that to make up the difference. It's very dangerous to kind of make that kind of overbid for a house because you're sort
Sure,
of rolling the dice on appraisals, because the sales price usually outpaces what the appraised value is.
sure.
And just informing clients, just letting them know kind of this is,
Yeah.
these are the Vegas odds. Here's where
So,
we're
so how do
gambling.
we avoid, what are the dangers of it happening like what happened in the subprime market? during 2008 and during, because this was, and I heard, this was the thing, I was sitting with Melissa and we were sitting there and on one of the news programs, and they said, oh, housing prices, and oh, they're always going to continue to go up. It doesn't matter. Please don't worry about that. And we both looked at each other and went, really? Non-professionals. We just went, really? And so I'm asking about this. How do you think, as a professional, how do you think about this? How would you know whether or not there are dangers here, or whether or not there is something that we should be concerned about?
Well, there are always dangers, especially in any kind of real estate market, any kind of market period. And I do think when people make large statements like house pricing will always go up, the value of your home will never go down.
Yeah,
Always and never, usually good red flags that's just patently not true.
sure.
Um, I
But
do
you,
think that
as
there
you're
is.
thinking about it, what do you look at? What do you look at, and what do you see as the challenges or danger signals or warning signs? When would you know that a hurricane was coming?
Well,
And I mean
I,
that, and that I know you're predicting a black swan, and that's no, and you can't do that.
uh,
But I'm just asking, as you as a professional, and what you think about.
well, I will say that 2020 did cure me of predicting the future. I'm bad at it, and I'm out of that particular business. And 2021 is reinforcing that I'm very bad at predicting the future.
Yes.
What I will say is, when you're asking yourself about real estate markets and the bubble, is I need you to be really genuinely honest about the actual economy of the city in which you live in and the actual economy of the state in which you live in.
Mm.
Because there are is your housing real estate market affected just by kind of the pandemic, right? Which is this short-term
Sure.
supply problem, because there's real estate, like every other industry, has been kind of interrupted or disrupted by the pandemic. So is this a short-term supply problem that will even out within the next 1 to 2 years? Then maybe you need to kind of maybe take a step back and
Hmm.
recognize that it doesn't seem reasonable that your house is going to appreciate 20% in 1 year, right?
Got it.
And I would say that is true for some of the states in the union that have been a little hard hit, economically, by having
Sure.
industries leave, industries move, industries change. Think about some states in the southeast and in the Midwest. Uh, what is true, I think, about a real estate market like Austin, and honestly, like a real estate market Texas writ large, is that I think the economics for Texas writ large are strong. You know, um,
Very strong. Low corporate taxes, low regulation, a strong business focused legislature. I'm not saying
correct.
all these things are good things, but let's just say they are things. So when, in particular, Austin and the Austin region and the it is attracting high tech like crazy.
Exactly. And that's when you kind of, like, you look at both, the macroeconomics for Austin and then Texas writ large. Let's look at Austin. I mean, Austin has always had a supply problem, and we've had more people moving here than
Yep.
leaving in, say, the past 10 years. And that doesn't seem to be changing, right? Austin itself, in September of 2020, Tesla announced they're building a factory here. Oracle said they're moving their headquarters here, and I believe it was like Samsung's expanding their campus.
Hmm.
So is Apple. Basically, we had four large tech companies double down and increase their presence in Austin, and that is not going to change. And you sort of play that out, that Austin's real estate market and economy is heavily dependent on tech. But what happens if the tech economy hits a bubble? What if the tech economy crashes, right?
Hmm.
What happens if the European Union or the American government decide that they are utilities and need to be heavily regulated and
Sure.
governed? Well, that will cause some sort of hit to the tech economy. But what does that mean for Austin? My personal belief is that no matter what, if there's a downturn in tech, Austin only stands to benefit, because the tech companies are going to continue to increase their presence here, because at the end of the day, we're just cheaper
Sure.
than California. we're just cheaper than
If
Silicon
you
Valley.
just
So they're
if you
just going
just
to
do that
accelerate
on a
that.
dollar to dollar, and whether or not you can get, but that means that the people, the ancillary people that support that are going to be moving here, that they're going to have to be doing, that they're not doing virtual or some kind of a hybrid kind of a state. What a time to be alive, Bonnie.
Oof.
I mean,
I was
have you ever wondered, where you sat there, boy, I would have liked to have been there at the beginning of, I don't know, the Industrial Revolution or some kind of a big start. Well, we're here at the beginning because AI and all of the work and virtuality and how we're going to be doing, all of that is happening now. This is when the
Mhm.
time they're going to be, and we are leaving the planet.
Right. Yes, I was thinking about that. I don't know if you it's not I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but CNN had this series of documentaries called like the 60s, the
Yeah,
70s, right?
of
Sort of
course. Watch it
going
all the
over sort of
time.
like I remember watching it all, and then it got to the aughts. It got to like 2000s, and when it started with the presidential, election and the Chad crisis in Florida, and then it went to planes into buildings, and then it went into the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, and then it went into Katrina, right? And then it went into the election of Barack Obama and the global financial crisis, and it was just sort of like that was a hell of a decade. Yeah, it's an amazing time to be alive, and that seems quaint. I mean, compared to 2020, 2020 is starting off with a bang,
Yeah,
and 2021 is who knew they felt that competitive with 2020.
exactly.
That it's an interesting time to be alive. Things are changing so rapidly, and I have a feeling that my parents' generation, the boomers, also kind of felt that way, right? And their parents must have felt that. The idea that my grandmother grew up in a shack in Alabama with a dirt floor, and that she lived to see Google, and what a strange sort of journey that must have been, and that I'm going to be one of the last generations that knew how to use like a Dewey Decimal System library card catalog.
Exactly. Who actually
Uh,
saw one? I love that. I
I
mean,
used one.
yeah. I was wondering how when you're teaching like elementary kids and you use a term like, what does the term clockwise mean in a digital world?
Well, that's a good question. I didn't even think about that. Wow. Wow. Right. Yes. I mean, like
Or a word like dial tone. What?
dial tone. Yes. I mean, what does that even mean? I told my nephew who, he graduated college, I guess, in what, 2014, 2015.
Right.
And I
Now
told him that I
for
graduated
the audience, I'm 73 this year. So I was born in 48. You were born in
79.
79. All right.
So I'm
Well, that
42.
gives the audience an understanding of where we are along the chronological line. Continue. You were telling your nephew.
Oh, I was telling my nephew that I graduated college before Google, and he's like, how? Like, how does one how did you write papers? Like, what did you do? And I was like, it's called a library. It's
Yeah.
called a library, and it's called books. You looked them up, and he's like, whoa.
Hmm.
And there's no way in which you could even imagine having gone through a college degree without having the internet, right?
Sure.
Without having Google. It's just
So how has this changed for you as a business person and both as a real estate person and as a mortgage advisor and all this? How are you using and your clients using this that makes things easier or makes things harder or here in 2021 in getting to there? Because I'm thinking, I mean, I'm seeing virtual home tours where you actually
right.
have a camera that goes through the homes. There are all kinds of, I mean, so many interesting innovations, and of course the online of, oh, don't worry about it, just put your home right in here and your cash will be in your bank this afternoon. What?
Yeah, there real estate, kind of traditionally has been slow to adopt new technology, and I do think that real estate is, and some of the new technology for real estate is also um, selling convenience as opposed to a good deal. Some of these companies that are rising up and saying like, no hassle, we'll buy your house, you don't have to do anything. No, it is a convenience for the customer, but it is unfair if they actually really took time to figure out what they could actually do if they talked to a real human that they could trust, right?
Right.
Technology is convenient. That doesn't mean it's cheaper.
No.
Not all the time.
Oh, no, and I
I
agree. But I love you using the T word, trust, because the thing that you have, Bonnie, the thing that you build, the thing that you have built with me from the very first time I met you, and I know that you do this with every one of your clients, is you build trust. And to be able to have trust, especially when you're dealing with the largest purchase besides your student loan, including a student loan, of what you do in your lifetime, it's really important. So how do you establish trust with your clients to be able to do this in this digital world?
Generally what I do is I do insist that they talk to me. That's the kind of the one insistence I have, which sometimes can be kind of edge play for millennials, right?
I'm so glad you do. Thank you. Edge them, push them into this.
Yeah.
This is important.
Well, and with millennials and with, because millennials, let's kind of be honest. I'm
Yep.
the oldest millennial and kind of the youngest Gen
Right,
Xers. I'm
right,
right there on
right.
that
You're the
edge.
bridge.
On the bridge, and millennials have a great trust of technology and an ease with it. But when it comes to mortgages specifically, think about it, that they were the ones who were either graduating from college or graduating from high school during the financial crisis, and
Exactly.
essentially all they really know about mortgages is it broke the world. Mortgages were something unknowable and that people signed and they didn't understand, and they lost their houses, and it broke the entire economy. They were trying to get a job in one of the worst, recessions in 100 years.
Yep.
So I find the fact that millennials are even willing to even think about getting a mortgage to buy a house an act of stunning bravery and wisdom, right?
Yep.
Historically, owning your own home has been one of the only ways in which Americans have been able to build and maintain wealth and generational wealth. I want them to. I tend to start with a level of just education, right? This is what this mortgage is. This is how it's set up.
Wonderful.
I don't really pull a lot of punches. I don't have a super high opinion of banking in general or bankers in general. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm not here saying like, hey, this is great. This is wonderful. There's nothing so much fun. It's so easy to get a mortgage. It's just like, washing your car. It's not. It's
No.
not. And I think one should be wildly suspicious of any kind of salesperson who,
Sure.
makes you think that buying a house is or should be, as easy as applying for 10% off your Amazon order.
Yeah.
Um, it's a big deal. It's not an impossible deal, right? It is
Mm-hmm.
an adulting threshold, but it's not. It's nothing that you can't surmount. But it is something that I do insist that my clients, I need them to understand just the basics of what this banking
Wonderful.
entity is and why they're doing what they're doing. Um, and that's not for everybody. That's
No.
also something I tell them, that like if you want a different experience, there are people out there that really do want to just surrender to someone and who says, trust me, I'll take care of you, and I'm like, oh, okay, I will. You can trust me and I will
Right.
take care of you, but I do require a little bit of engagement.
I love that because to me an informed buyer is always better equipped, and they're always better equipped. And I know that we're super busy and that we're all that, but to get the education, when people tell me why and get me to be able to do that at that level, I'm always happier later. Now, I might not be happy at that instant, but I'm always happier later that I have gotten that kind of education, that I've put that kind of investment in it. I love that you require that of the people that you choose as your clients. Do you have you gotten of that into that place where you have gone from looking for clients, asking for clients, then choosing clients, and then to where you say, you know what, I may not be the best person for you. So I really need you to go, we're not doing that, but I want to be able to get the people that I can best serve.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough and grateful enough to kind of have a fully 100% referral business.
Yep.
And
Gee,
what I it's
lucky,
actually
lucky enough. That is just not. I am not going to let you get away with that, Bonnie. You are good enough. You are both. You, I know you, and I know you. I know your client. I've seen you in this space, and because of the quality of the work that you do and the service that you give to your clients, that's why you get that referral business, and that's why you're getting it. So now, I mean, but that's the interesting
well, thank you.
phase. Yeah. But that's
Well,
where you're
it is, and that's also my quote unquote sales pitch to real estate agents, in general, who are mainly my clients. Those are my main referral partners. What I and real estate agents have an entirely different job, and they're not all created equal. Some are good, some are bad.
yep.
Some are very successful and bad, and some are
Oh my God,
very successful
it's
and great.
humanity, right? I mean, you
Shocking,
have the
Tardan.
spectrum, right? Everything is
Yep.
along the spectrum. It doesn't matter what. I mean, there are doctors that have just barely made it through medical school and and just have a crappy. Then there are other but then they're both medically certified in the state of
Exactly. What D stands for diploma, and what do you call somebody who graduates at the bottom of their medical school class? You call them doctor.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, generally, what I say to real estate agents, with a few exceptions, is I tell them that I don't want every one of their clients. That I'm not for every one of their clients. I do require every buyer, even if this is your seventh, purchase, just to kind of let's walk through the basics again about what this mortgage is, and that's not for everyone. What I do tell them is, send me the ones you love. Send me the clients that you. Well, I say it actually a little bit more, blithely. Is I say, send me the ones that you can't screw up, right? Send me the ones that can't go wrong. I want the ones you love. I want your parents. I want your sister. I want your brother. I want your best friend. I want your boss, right? I want the ones. I want the clients that you love, and I will love them as well, and I will take care of them, and I will make sure that that it happens, and that they know and enjoy the experience. And so, I have found that to be wildly beneficial for everybody, right? Because I get the ones that everybody's just engaged with. I don't tend to mesh well with the kind of buyers that or the kind of borrowers that want this to be something that happens behind the curtains or something. I like
Right. Or that is
I
just
like people want to like.
transactional because this is something that
Yeah.
is important to them. This
I
is
mean,
a value.
transactions are important. Like I do like investors, but mostly like if you're buying a house to live in, even if it's you're living in, I mean, you can't be emotionally neutral about where you're living, right?
Exactly.
And I don't expect you to, but I'm here to help manage that fear and those emotions, and to make a good decision, one that you at least feel strong in.
Exactly.
I'm not your mom. I'm not here to kind of tell you what to do, but I'm here to tell you kind of like where the options are.
Right. And so that you can really make an informed decision. That's what a lovely thing. I mean, because we treat when we get treated like an adult and be able to do that, then we can go ahead and do this together. So in general, do you see the as the economy is coming back online, and in general, tell me about how you look at inflation, because this is I'm I am personally, I love that personally, as opposed to what. Uh, anyway, as I'm looking at inflation, as I'm looking at the global market, because I see this last global market, and the reason why we've had this bull market over the course of the last years, all the way through the recovery of 2008 and all the way up, and why it's been such the strongest market, is not just because the economy was juiced by the Fed and all that's there. But in addition to that, what I feel is that around the globe, people are going from $1 a day to $2 a day to $4 a day. And so we've got billions of people that are adding that now have a smartphone. So now they can see where the water is, they can see how they're connecting. So these mini markets are making and using the laws of large numbers to actually to get the consumerism that all over the world to be able to get to, the basic needs in general, is having an impact on this whole market. And I don't see that going on. Does that have any relevance to what you might to how I might be thinking about it? Am I thinking about it at all in a way that might be valid, or is
Uh,
there a big hole?
no, no, no. I mean, well, there's a separate side to the positivity, right? The positive impacts that you're talking about. It is true
Oh yeah,
that
and you know me,
yeah.
Bonnie, and as the blooming optimist, you got to be very careful about Dennis, because I will look at the positive side and go, "Oh wow, look at that." Well, okay, there's a big hole in the side of the boat, but hey, isn't that? Look at the water that's coming in. Let's.
I mean, exactly, right? Yes, it is a writ large good that the 7 billion people on the planet, there is a steady movement towards, coming out of subsistence living, right? There's a lot of people engaging in the global capital market, and that is seeing a rise in standard of living in places outside of, sort of the Western Hemisphere, and
Yep.
the winners of colonialism. The sort of
Can we just do
down
a program sometime on the winners of
winners of
colonialism? We'll just
colonialism.
what a great
Oof.
phrase.
Oh man, I've got some controversial things to say about the winners
And
of
we're going to do
colonialism.
it. We're going to have an off book, but published on just that, on
Oh,
how we
oh
do
God,
that,
I'd love it.
because of your intelligence background. And for the listeners that don't know, you have been in global intelligence. Before you went into real estate, you were in global intelligence, and you were deeply involved in globally what was happening at the statecraft this levels before you got
Right.
into this, and are still, I assume, connected. You don't, it's like the mafia, you never get out of it.
Oh, you don't, but hopefully you can retire. Uh,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, I'm retired.
Hey, that's what I say to everybody about real estate right now. Is like, this is my retirement job. Like, I'm I'm here to work off some karma, and I'm here to help people. I speak because of my sins. I speak banker and lawyer quite fluently, and
Yes.
I need to kind of pass those skills on for the betterment of mankind, as opposed to
And
other ways.
womankind, don't forget, and across the
Womankind.
spectrum line, the entire spectrum line, on how all of this is. Yes.
Yes. But back to the original question about, what inflation, right, and the global economic growth. There is undeniably great things happening for people across this globe. The dollar is king, right, and the United States is in a very unique situation. In that we can, and obviously, afford to make an awful lot of mistakes and still win. That is because, essentially, the global capital markets is a system we set up. The United States was one of the only functional economies left on the planet after World War II, and therefore we had the goal. We got to make the rules, and we did set up the rules to benefit ourselves and to make ourselves in charge of it. And we did set up, I think, what I think is turning out to be the one saving grace is that essentially the global commodity market is dollarized, right? When Saudi Arabia sells a barrel of oil to China, it is priced in dollars. The global commodity trade is in dollars, which means that, the whole world is going to have a constant demand for dollars. And that means we can and do ridiculous things like cut taxes and then start two wars. We can and do ridiculous things, or like, essentially do quantitative easing, which was the Fed printing $50 billion worth of money a month, and they did that by buying treasuries, right? And we have had historically low interest rates for, God, how many years now? I guess we're near 13. Money is cheap, and that's because it's by design. And I know there's a lot of, I'm a little on the other side of this. There's a lot of naysaying about how, China owns a lot of our debt and they could call that due and they could, screw us over here. And the answer is no, they can't,
It
right?
would
We're
be
all in
against
this.
their best interest to do that. It would be
Correct.
against their right.
Yes, we are all involved in this collective hallucination together. And I mean, yeah, we are. We are all committed to it
Thank
because we
you.
have to be. Yeah, because and at the end of the day, there's actually just no other game in town. And that is kind of the great thing for Americans and kind of really, abusive and crappy for the rest of the world is that at the end of the day, there is no other currency that can challenge ours. There is no other currency that is stable and competitive. There is no other economy that is as open and as diverse and as competitive. There is no challenge. And you see that every time there is some sort of global crisis. It means that when international investors are looking for safety, they just funnel their money into the United States. That's why the stock market keeps going up, because where else are they going to put their money? There's no other game in town. And even though that game is paying negative interest, right? It is still the only game in town. Now, do I think that's going to last forever? No. Do I think consumptive capitalism is endless? No. But I do think it is the world we're in right now. And while there will be shakes and inflation is inevitable, we've had not much of it actually, compared to how much liquidity we've dumped into the market.
But if we were ever to have, and I want to end it on this note, if we were ever to have a captain of the ship at the moment, I am happy to have Janet Yellen be our Sully Sullenberger, because I think she is smart. I think she is she's wise. She has a good handle on the understanding of that. Do you feel the same?
Honestly, I don't know much about her. I've not followed her career too much. I do think it was unfair, her short tenure at the Fed, at the Federal Reserve. She has said some things in her role as a Treasury Secretary that have kind of shaken my industry, there's not a lot of, I don't feel like there currently right now is a lot of coordination on fiscal policy between the White House and the Fed and the agencies that govern mortgages. There's a lot of cross-talking. There's a lot of legacy in the two crossover to the administrations that is putting a lot of, in my opinion, unnecessary uncertainty.
Exactly.
But we're all just figuring this out as we go along.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what this is out. This is why on June the 6th, after we've had the change in administrations, we'll see how it goes. Bonnie, will you do this again with me?
Of course, always. I love talking with you, Dennis. You're one of my favorite humans, and you have such an amazing mind.
It's an extraordinary opportunity. Anyway, thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you next time. This is Bonnie Neel and Dennis Tardan collaborating again. Hot damn.